Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. What's worse than mommy kissing Santa Claus? That's right, daddy giving Rudolph a reach around. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
What up, dude? This is some interesting music that you've got leading us in here this morning. What is this?
Christmas shit, you know.
Is it?
Jingle bells.
Okay.
It's like a jazzy jingle bells.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
All right. Now I get it. Fair enough. You know, Chad, we've both suffered through many, many years of having what we used to call sister radio stations play a month's worth of Christmas music to appease a whole bunch of retail advertisers. Chad, Christmas music is like my least favorite music of all time.
Cool, because I got some more.
I'm excited for this because it's in very, very small doses. But don't you remember working at places where one of the radio stations that would, let's say, be dedicated to music of a bygone era would play nothing but Christmas music for an entire month, so that when you would walk into certain retail establishments, they would have that playing and be like, oh, isn't that great? It's, you know, Mike and Carla also play Christmas music. This is fun.
Yeah, when you're yeah, I agree. It was Christmas music everywhere you went, at work, when you went shopping, when, you know, everywhere, and you couldn't escape it. And so I agree. But in small doses, it's not bad.
No, I'm fine with it in small doses. I like to go with the banned Christmas song list mostly. So if there's anything by Lightning Hopkins, if there's anything like Baby It's Cold Outside, I really try to pile those ones on high and deep around the Christmas season. One thing that I did talk about with somebody the other day, and this is just like a random conversation I was having at a bar with somebody, and good morning to you, Jen Bank. Nice to see you up and at it this morning, was this, and we talked about this back in, I don't know, 2012. Holiday season starts in like November and doesn't actually end for business purposes until like March. Isn't that the way that it seems? It's like, well, the holiday season begins in November. We better not get back to business until March or something. And I remember you and I owning a business at that time. We're like, this is bullshit. Like, we're still working. We want to get some stuff done. Don't tell us holiday season lasts for 4 months, you know, because sure, you can wrap. There's always a holiday going on. And especially if you get the powers that be, the hallmarks involved with this thing, then there's always a holiday going on. There's always some reason for you to frivolously spend your money. But we were just like, hey, guys, we'd love to be able to put something together for you. They're like, don't talk to us until after the holidays. Well, when the fuck would that be? Because it seems like this never ends.
Boxing Day. Isn't it after Boxing Day?
I wish.
It's like when you regift. That's the Canadian regifting holiday, I believe. Isn't that what that Boxing Day is all about?
Oh, okay. I thought that was the day which we celebrated, Hector Camacho or something.
Oh, could be that. Sure.
Which, by the way, I watched an interesting documentary last night. The Bucks game was looking like such a rout. We'll get into that because the Bucks got beat by Cleveland. It was a lot closer than it looked in the first half. But in between my sheer boredom and my levels of depression, I turned over to Showtime and I started watching this documentary on Macho Camacho, and he was one of the most electric boxers of our generation in the 1980s and 1990s. What a sad way for him to die. 50 years old. I forgot about that guy, capped over in Puerto Rico because he was on a coke bender. It was really, really sad. But that dude, when he was at the height of his prowess, he was something to behold. And I remember, you know, between Sugar Ray Leonard retiring and before Mike Tyson really took over boxing, there was a time, and it wasn't super long, but Macho Camacho was like the most popular boxer in the world.
Yeah, I would say him. Marvin Hagler was obviously Sugar Ray Leonard. Those are the guys that I remember. But those three, in my time growing up watching boxing, you know, because like Larry Holmes and some of the, you know, like the heavyweights until Mike Tyson came along, I was like, You know
once Mike came in, it ushered in a new right, in a new era of heavyweights, because then you had great fights like Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield. You started to see Lennox Lewis come up and through the ranks. So the heavyweight division was really, it was fine. But there was just a time I remember, and watching this documentary last night, as I mentioned, the Bucks were getting routed in the first half by the Cleveland Cavaliers, came back to make it a game, and Giannis scored a season-high 45 points. But, man, I was taken back to my childhood, 80s, 90s, and I thought about how impactful for at least a small time, you know, Camacho was on the boxing world. And maybe it was just, you know, because I was into boxing so much at that time. I had a subscription, for Christ's sakes, at 9 to Ring Magazine. So I was like really into it.
I didn't go back to my childhood. Similar experience. I was watching Golden State get their ass handed to them by the Brooklyn Nets 2 nights in a row that I think someone scored over 130 points against Golden State. And it happens to be in New York, which is interesting. So I didn't go back to my childhood, but I turned into a 12-year-old and watched part of season 3 of Family Guy. So
there you go.
That was
there
what
you
I
go.
did.
Listen, and for those that are big time fans of the Warriors, which I don't think we have much of, this reminded me a lot of what the Golden State Warriors went through for many years before they got good.
Yeah.
Because the Golden State Warriors had this little era called Run TMC, Tim Hardaway, Chris Mullin, Mitch Richmond.
Yeah.
And then they went through the O'Donnell Foyle years, right? Like they went through the times in which Latrell Sprewell was busy choking out PJ Carlesimo. Like the Warriors were an awful fucking team for a long time. I remember that.
It was so awesome.
Dude, he choked his coach out at practice. Don't you talk to me that way, boy. And just, and then Latrell Sprewell, God bless him, turned down a 3-year, $21 million contract from the Timberwolves because he had to feed his family. Never got another job in the NBA ever again.
Hey, we got a couple. So Joey Miller's talking about Ronnie Hillman, who passed away, 31 years old.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, former running back for the Broncos. And then Brad's checking in about Franco Harris, which we talked about yesterday, which we do have one correction. When we were talking about Franco Harris's immaculate reception, that was
I said Super Bowl. That was the AFC championship game, or was it the divisional game?
Divisional playoff game against the Raiders. But
yeah, that was my fuck up. I thought about that last night too. I was like, wait, it was the Raiders. I'm like, David, what are you talking about? That was not the Super Bowl. Well, he still was a 4-time Super Bowl champion, and he still was the MVP of what was it, Super Bowl 9?
Yeah, Super Bowl 9. That was when Franco was MVP. Lynn Swann was Super Bowl 10, 13, 14 was Terry Bradshaw.
There you go. There you go. Morning Wood said he'd like Golden State more if it wasn't for Draymond Green. I actually think Draymond Green was one of the reasons that I liked Golden State for years, because he was this scrappy fucking player from Michigan State that just mucked it up. A Tom Izzo specialty. I think that Draymond Green, and I said this last week, I think that Draymond Green's become almost a cartoon now. He reminds me of Dennis Rodman when he was playing with like the Lakers and teams at the very end of his career. He was so ineffective, and he wouldn't shoot the basketball. He would throw away layups because he just wouldn't shoot the basketball. And I was watching Draymond Green when they were playing Milwaukee, and he's just got zero offense. And there was a time in which Draymond Green was a respectable shooter from downtown. You had to at least guard him. But this Golden State team, by the way, 1-5 in their last 6. I want to say Golden State lost by 1,000 points. They're still losing to Brooklyn, as a matter of fact, right now. Steve Kerr says they have hit rock bottom, and it might be time to switch up our fading of California teams with respect to our betting. We might have to start fading the Warriors. Speaking of betting, we got a lot of betting action to cover. Chad and I are going to break down all of Week 16 in the NFL, which kicks off tonight. There's an important game, the Jags and the Jets. We'll talk about Christmas Day. As a matter of fact, that is the subject of this morning's poll question at the Sports Carney on Twitter, our Facebook group page. Which of the 2 Wisconsin teams in action on Christmas are you most excited to see? We got a Bucks Celtics game, and we, of course, have that Packers Dolphins game. Stick around. A lot more to come here on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Do you have a wedding, anniversary party, or bat mitzvah coming up in your life? Then you need Hey Duda DJ services, featuring Neil Duda, the Midwest Eminem.
No doubt about it, I'm hammered, and that's every day. Brand's so cloudy, dog.
Dropping sick beats while you enjoy your treats. No party is too big or too small. Quinceañeras, graduations, ice cream socials, or cockhold parties. Whatever the celebration, Hey Duda is rocking the foundation.
Here we go again, back with all our friends. Here comes the pain.
Neil Duda.
Broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios, this is the Sports Carnival. Happy holidays. Want to know why Santa is so jolly? Because he knows where all the naughty girls live. That was creepy. Here's your host, Dave Kearney.
Santa's always been a little bit of a creep. First of all, he's an elf. Okay, so we're already starting off with a nomadic theme, right? We've got an elf coming into the house as a non-human entity. He wants you to sit on his lap. He's going to break and enter into your place. Some people he's going to leave cold, which in certain cases, I'm like, is that really a bad thing? I mean, we were talking about pre-industrial revolution, right? So if he leaves you coal, he's actually leaving you a source of fuel, which isn't all bad, right? You could burn the coal, maybe stay alive for that extra day, fight off the dysentery and also the tuberculosis, which was sure to follow. Yeah, I've never really understood the Santa story. And I told you guys, yesterday, and maybe this makes me a Grinch. I don't care. I got a little pissed off at my mom when I found out that Santa wasn't real because I started to smell a rat early on. Like I smelled a rat real early on. I was like, why did I walk out in the middle of the night and see my mom and dad wrapping presents? Like, what the fuck? I thought Santa brought these presents, and then I lived in apartments, and so it was real hard to reverse engineer the whole chimney thing. Well, see, Santa just comes in through the window, and I'm like, well, how? Well, he's magic. And, all right, okay. The only magic I knew for sure existed was number 32 for the Los Angeles Lakers at the time. That was the only magic
right.
I knew existed. But I digress, and Christmas music is fun. Jen Bank, I didn't see this up here. I just wanted to pop it up, though. Jen Bank said, take a listen to Twisted Sister's Christmas album. It's pure gold. Okay. I think I could get behind that. That's like it would be interesting. It sounds like it would be interesting.
I have never listened to Twisted Sister's Christmas album. Did not know they had one. Don't know if I will purchase it, but I may poke around on the interwebs and see if I can find some of that later on.
Yeah, I definitely think it would be worth a listen on YouTube. I think the prospects of you being able to find a copy for sale is actually in greater dispute than anything right now. I'm almost 100% sure that you could go online and find a song.
Well, yeah, sure.
But finding a record, hey, listen, shout out to, whenever National Record Store Day is, because then maybe you just get to go around, dig through the piles. And I used to have a lot of fun doing that. That stuff's, I don't think that's dead yet. Poking around in record piles is not dead yet.
No.
And that's probably like at Twisted Ear, downtown La Crosse on 4th Street, shameless plug. That's probably one of the places that you could find that. I don't know.
Is that what's called Twisted Ear? I like that.
Yeah. Or wait, no, Deaf Ear. I said Twisted Ear. I was thinking Twisted Moose, which is an old restaurant. Deaf Ear Records. There you go. You can tell how regular of a shopper I am.
Deaf Ear Records.
Yeah, Deaf Ear. Hey,
come on down and try one of our albums.
Not quite like that.
Oh,
not quite like that. Morning Wood says, how about Fran McCaffrey in Iowa losing as a 31-point favorite last night? So I think they lost Iowa. I want to say they lost to Eastern Illinois, and Iowa was a 31.5-point favorite last night. It was the largest upset from a Division I team in 30 years. 30 years. Now, this comes at the same time where the Iowa women's basketball team just saw, I want to say it was Caitlin Clark, become the second fastest to reach 2,000 points in women's college basketball. Look at how deep we are going here.
Dude, damn. I don't know who Fran McCarthy is, and I don't know what you just said about women's basketball.
Fran McCaffrey is the coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes.
Oh, of course. Oh,
yes.
You mean Fran McCaffrey? Yeah, okay, now I know you're talking about.
Who, by the way, shout out to Iowa basketball, Keegan Murray last night for the Sacramento Kings, who was top 10 draft pick this year. Keegan Murray balled out for Sacramento, had 23 last night. And Chad, I went 2-1 last night in my bets. I ended up taking Giannis as a prop bet over 29.5 points. I talked about this with John Papadopoulos on ESPN 105.5, who, by the way, is scheduled to join us this morning at 8:30. John Papadopoulos is scheduled to join us this morning at 8:30. But I said last evening on the Sports Lead with John that I would take Giannis over that 29.5 point total because I felt like he would need to carry the load. He did. 45, they lose. I also took the Lakers and the Kings. I took the Kings minus 3 points in that first half. Hit that one because they rolled the Lakers, especially in the first half. Chad, the bet that I lost last night was the Boston Celtics minus 6 points in the first half versus the Indiana Pacers. Boston got beat the hell up. What is going on with the Celtics right now? Because
I don't know.
They are starting to stumble a little bit here.
Yeah, it's troubling. The only thing about it is, again, it's early. I after Christmas, I start getting a little bit more concerned. Speaking of Christmas, I think did you already talk about the poll question?
Well, I mentioned it.
So yeah, the Bucks play the Celtics on Christmas.
They do.
To me, that's a more important game. I really want to see how the Celtics play the Bucks. And obviously that's a barometer of where we're at. Some of these other games that they lose, I think sometimes it's just lack of focus. I don't know. It's like every team, it's a long season. So I don't get too concerned game to game necessarily, but there's been a couple of hiccups recently, no doubt about it. So I'm curious on how they play the Bucks on Christmas. I think they'll take that a little bit more serious, and I think that's going to be a great game.
I think it should be a monster game. And I'm looking at our poll question on our Facebook group page right now, 262 members and growing, and Packers getting 85% of the vote when asked which Wisconsin team are you most excited to watch on Christmas. Now on Twitter, flip that thing around, it like almost on its head. 83.3% for the Bucs, only 16.7% for the Packers. Chad, while we've got some time, let's bring up that Bucs slide from last night for those that didn't get a chance to watch the Bucs and the Cavs. Maybe you don't have Bally Sports or Bally Sports Plus app, which is just $20 a month now. That's the one way that you can watch the Bucs. And I've been asked this a lot by those that don't have the right cable subscription or don't want to have to go through DirecTV. It was Donovan Mitchell, and Donovan Mitchell's presence on the floor for the Cavs last night, as anticipated, at least by me, that was really giving the Bucs a lot of problems. You and I have talked about this Cavs team, and I was talking about this yesterday afternoon with John Papadapolus again. This Cavs team had lost their last two matchups with Milwaukee, but especially in the last matchup when they lost by 15, 117, 102, it was because Donovan Mitchell was doing his impersonation of Anthony Davis and wearing street clothes over there on the bench. He comes back last night, scores 36. Giannis had 45, which is great, but it was listen, the Bucs came back a bit in the second half, but the score, it does not indicate how much of a blowout this was because Cleveland was just steamrolling Milwaukee. Donovan didn't play as much in the second half as he would have if it would have been close. Milwaukee made, like I said, a valiant effort, but needless to say, this Cleveland team is real. And the length, Jared Allen, we talked about him. Off the bench, Kevin Love, and then you've got a kid in this Mosley from USC, Mobley, excuse me, who is like he's got superstar potential written all over him. Should he not get injured, Cleveland's going to be dangerous, man. And now up next for the Bucs, we've talked about Christmas versus Boston. They've got to beat a Brooklyn team who is starting to play with some momentum here.
Yeah.
And Brooklyn, I know they can't defend anybody, but shit, they can score.
It's, Jacques Vaughn's kind of turned the ship around a little bit with them on defense, though. Yeah, they're not a great defensive team, but they're getting better, and they kind of exhibited that last night. Obviously, Golden State's in bad shape without Steph Curry. They were kind of in troubled waters with Steph, but without him, it's like losing your engine, and he's really the engine of that team. And there's not really a go-to guy. Jordan Poole's doing the best that he can, but I think the Nets overall are starting to, come around, and their defense is improving. Obviously, we know what they can do offensively. I think they put up 140 something last night
without Kyrie, by the way,
without Kyrie.
Now,
so this is going to be very interesting on Friday, how this plays out. Obviously the Bucs need this win, and then they're going to go in to play the Celtics on Christmas Day. So you get a couple of big games for the Bucs. And, last night I didn't get to see the game, but Giannis did, I think, had 14 rebounds as well.
He did
45 points. And he's constantly showing night after night why he's probably the leading candidate for MVP, if not Jason Tatum. Right. I mean, I think it's going back and forth each game from game to game.
Well, and I know that we dismissed the notion, and I flatly refused to even accept it and told Joey Miller, one of our audience members, Chad, that I would bet him that he doesn't win a third MVP. Nikola Jokic is starting to give himself a couple of more votes potentially for that MVP, and Denver's winning again more. But I would agree with you right now. Largely, it's a two-horse race between Giannis and Jason Tatum. Of course, the national narrative would love to see Luka Doncic get in there, but I've just seen Luka lose too many games to other MVP type candidates recently to make much of a case for that. When we look at this game last night again versus Cleveland, Giannis going for that 45 and 14, as you've mentioned, there were a lot of other players that did not perform well. Drew Holiday only had 9 points. He did have 9 rebounds and 8 assists, but didn't shoot the ball well. Chris Middleton was out again for the team, so he wasn't able to be, any sort of contributor. Marshawn Beauchamp, though, is somebody, or how do we say his name again? Because
that's right.
Yeah,
Beauchamp, yeah.
He's starting to really impress me a bit. Now, he played 20 minutes last night for Milwaukee, scored 11 points, but this is the last 2 games I have seen Beauchamp really show me something. He's longer than I thought. He's more athletic than I thought. Milwaukee may have struck on something here. This might have been one of those sleepy type of a picks that you don't really look at, and at least at the time of the draft, and say, wow, that's a great play. But Beauchamp might be one of those guys Milwaukee puts into that rotation on a pretty consistent basis. He looks like he's got something.
Well, and I've mentioned before, he's from my area, as a matter of fact, Beauchamp. So that's kind of exciting for folks here in the Northwest to see him on a team like the Bucs. It's number one, the fact that he's in the NBA, but then he's lucky enough to get on a contender, right? That always makes it nice and get some national recognition as well. And he's playing well, so that's good. But as you mentioned before, the Cavs are extremely tough defensively, and obviously them being at home and their length, I think, bothers teams. And then if you're not shooting well on top of it, it becomes a recipe for a loss, and that's what we saw obviously last night. Again, I didn't get to see the game; I was too busy watching Golden State get their ass kicked by the Nets, which was quite amazing. You mentioned Luka. I think Luka ended up almost close to a triple-double last night. But, if you're looking at Luka for MVP, I think his biggest deficit is going to be his team. He's not winning enough games. It's not really his numbers. His numbers are always going to be good. The guy can dominate. The guy can put up triple-double numbers almost every night. But if you don't have team success, I don't think that equates to an MVP. I think you have to have that team success for that to make that work.
Well, you do, and I think that's fair. The one time in which the team's success wasn't as paramount was when Russell Westbrook averaged a triple-double for the first time since Oscar Robertson did it, and led a Thunder team, which by all accounts and measures should have never been sniffing the postseason, led them into the playoffs as, I think, a 7 seed, and that was warranted. I was looking at that Dallas game a bit tonight, too. They beat Minnesota. Congratulations, 104-99. Both teams now at 16-16. But Dallas is 4-11 away from home. I remember this one season with Larry Bird as MVP, and I want to say it was 86. Correct me if I'm wrong. You'll know. But the Celtics at the time, and I think the record still holds, went 41-1 at home. Right?
86.
Okay, 86. They also won, I want to say, 27 of their 42 basketball games away from home to win like 66, 67 games that season. Those are MVP seasons, right? That's an MVP season. For Luka Doncic, the numbers last night, 25, 9, and 8, great, or 10 assists, whatever. Good, but again, you win by 5 over Minnesota. That's not going to be something that we necessarily look at and say, okay, now we can give you the all the first ballot, or all the first, the first place votes here for MVP. You've just got to win more basketball games. You just
the other thing though is the narrative building, and since the beginning of the season, before the season even started, they were talking about Luka. So clearly, that's the kind of the direction the NBA seems to want to go with it, or it appears that way. So there's that you have to lump in there, and then when it comes to Jokic, I think to win 3 in a row, that's almost impossible to do. Obviously, the last guy to do it was Larry Bird. And you have to, again, go back to team success, where Denver isn't as successful as Larry was on 84, 85, 86. All 3 of those teams that he was on, 84, 85, 86, went to the finals, and he won 2 finals. So that's the other problem you have with the Joker, I think. It's not his numbers. Again, his numbers are great. So again, I think it goes back to the 2 guys we've been talking about all season. Obviously, it's early to be talking about MVP, but it's going to be Giannis and Jason Tatum at this point. When you look at their individual numbers, what they're doing individually on the floor every night, and you look at their team success, that to me equates to MVP candidates.
No doubt. And I don't think it's really at this point too early to start talking about it. Both of these teams, at least, the Milwaukee Bucks have played 31 games. Boston's right there, I think, at 31-32 as well. So I don't think it's too early to be talking about that. Matty Ice did check in, corrected me. It was 40-1 at home. Thank you. 82 games, 41 at home, 41 on the road. Appreciate that, Matty Ice. I see our good buddy John Papadopoulos, ESPN 105.5 Chad, the sports lead, is hanging around. He's a little bit early with this morning, so why don't we do this? We'll take a little bit earlier of a break here on the Sports Carnival. We'll come back. We'll talk to John. I'm going to be a regular contributor on the sports lead, ESPN 105.5 Thursdays at 5 p.m. Last night, we did it a bit early because we were, again, expecting some really inclement weather out here. All schools closed in La Crosse and in Vernon County, at least from what I can tell. So that means that you're at home, you're bundled up. And when we come back, we'll talk to John Papadopoulos from ESPN 105.5's The Sports Lead here on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live coast to coast from the Trauma Center studios.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
Dwayne from Bangor, who's a big fan of this show, used to have big supporter of ours. He just messaged, hey, say hi to Dave.
Well, listen, John, if I can sneak this in real quick, and we'll talk about it next week. Dwayne, everybody is invited to the recovery room next Thursday from 6 to 10. We're giving away a whole bunch of stuff thanks to our friends at Alaskan Amber, New Glarus, and Blue Moon. 43-inch TV, snowboard. It's going to be a ton of fun. I want to see you. I want to see Dwayne. I want to see everybody out there.
The official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest mortgage team of Land Home Financial, my good buddies Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi. Listen, we all know the mortgage industry is in a bit of an upheaval right now, and that's why it's more important than ever to go to a couple of guys that you can trust, a local operation right here in La Crosse. That is the Midwest mortgage team. Again, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi of Land Home Financial. Don't make a mistake with your mortgage needs. Go to the official mortgage provider of the Sports Carnival, the Midwest mortgage team, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. If you want to stay STD free this Christmas, remember to wrap your package before you shove it down the chimney. Now, here's your host, Dave Kearney.
Once again, proving that you have to get out of regular radio in order to have this kind of fun in the morning. We'll actually put that to the test with John Papadapolus here, ESPN 105.5 in the Cooley region from the Sports Lead. Matty Euler, Matty Ice, as he is known here to us, John, has said to say hello to you for him. Last evening, we had Dwayne from Bangor send me a shout out on your program. So wanted to just do a little reciprocity as we started. John, top of the morning. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
Good.
We're loving our life, man. It's about 18 degrees below zero, real feel right now. At least that's what my phone says. John, we got a lot of snow last night, but I don't know if it was as much as anticipated. What are your thoughts? Are you guys going to go back into the studio this afternoon after all, or what are you guys going to do now?
Well, I think, you know what I keep hearing about it is these whiteouts we're supposed to get. Like when the wind starts kind of whipping around and you can't see on the road anymore. Right?
Sure.
And it whips the snow up from the ground. I think I haven't really looked outside this morning that closely, but it looks like it's starting to get a little windier right now. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens here. We got a couple of game plans set up for today. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So we may get an early start to Christmas break, but we'll have to see in this thing. This thing seems pretty nasty though. A little something different, I think.
You know, everybody at the office right now at the Spartatoma Broadcast Company is just saying, please, God, let these whiteout. I don't want to have to go in today. And listen, for most of our workers, the kids are already off. Hey, they've already called it. And so maybe that's what we'll do. Chad's out there in Eastern Washington, and he's even suffering through some unseasonably cold temperatures. This Arctic blast is no joke. John, you know what else is no joke? The Green Bay Packers' chances to get into the postseason. Last night, we were talking about this a bit on the Sports Lead, again, ESPN 105.5, 3 to 6 p.m. daily. And you had asked me about the coming game versus the Miami Dolphins, what I thought about the spread. John, let me flip this back to you, but ask you about the Packers' prospects, starting with this Miami Dolphins game to make the postseason. What do you think needs to happen versus Miami this Sunday on Christmas in order for the Packers to win? And then what do you think the Packers can realistically do for the rest of the season if, in fact, they are going to make it into the playoffs?
Well, I think they have to be functional defensively. You know, that's the question for me right now. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. We talked about it last night when you came on our show. The Packers offense right now is not the Packers offense from a month or 2 months ago. I thought Rodgers threw the ball better than he has all season, just the way the ball came out of his hand. He's got one of the best one-two punches at running back. You got an offensive line that's playing pretty well right now. And let's face it, at wide receiver, they're not bad anymore. You know, I think it's kind of ingrained in our minds. They have young receivers and they're not very good, but we saw what Watson and Dobbs have done. Randall Cobb had a great game. I mean, Randall Cobb, if that guy's healthy, he's got symmetry with Rodgers. Lazard is doing his thing. So you got four, I would say B-minus guys. You know, none of them are A guys, but now you have four B-minus guys, and maybe Watson's above that with two A running backs. And the offensive line is playing really well. That's something that nobody's talking about. Zach Tom is a starting left tackle in the NFL. And in general, that line's playing well. So I think the Packers are going to be able to score in Miami. The question is, can they stop Miami? Because the Dolphins are going to probably put up a lot of points against the Packers as well. So, you know, you asked the question, what has to happen in this thing? Honest to God, I think, you know, we could say this every week in the NFL, but I think whoever either wins the turnover battle or maybe takes advantage of something fluky, a fumble inside the 5-yard line, a special teams play. Does Keyshawn Nixon keep doing what he's doing? Do they kick to him anymore? So I got a feeling two offenses that are going to both put up about 30 points, maybe more. The question is which defense can be even functional, and maybe which team can take advantage of something fluky, like I said, whether it's special teams or a turnover or something of that nature.
Like a bad lateral, maybe?
Maybe a bad lateral. Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God. What on earth is going on right now?
I don't know. It's been interesting. There has been a lot of fluky things going on in the NFL. So what you're saying, John, if I'm hearing you correctly, the over is the key here in the game if you're betting.
I think so.
Okay.
We talked about it last night, right, Dave? This is a game where you look at the over-under and say, I might take the over on this one.
Yeah, and the number has continued to swell up, guys, because I think a lot of folks are feeling the same way that we are. And when you look at where the number is sitting right now, I want to say it's at 49.5. We see that Green Bay, I'll check us for the most recent lines. Yeah, 49.5. It opened at 46.5. We see that Green Bay is not going to be playing in what would be considered the really hot weather for them, 80 or 85 degrees. I think Packer players would have a bit of an issue coming from Green Bay, Wisconsin down there, but it's going to be a balmy 60. John, as we talked about last night on your show, that's almost the perfect football weather. So I can see the over being the play here too. One thing that did sort of break this morning, and I saw Aaron Nagler and a couple of others start to trickle this out, A.J. Dillon's being tested for concussion right now. John, if that is the case and A.J. Dillon is in fact out, and we saw him go into the tent last week and went through the protocol, but if A.J. Dillon is out, how does that change in your estimation the Packers' potential to beat a team like Miami? I feel like he's going to be a crucial part of the game plan if, in fact, they want to win this game, because we see what the Dolphins' pass rush can do. They've got some legitimate players on that front. So the run game is going to be important. What if Dillon can't go?
Well, I thought last week was the A.J. Dillon game. 15 degrees, inflicts some pain. We've seen this like 4 or 5 times in Dillon's career when the weather is really bad. The Tennessee game last year, I don't know if he's as crucial. Now, you'd rather have A.J. Dillon than Patrick Henry as your second back. But I think this is more of an Aaron Rodgers game. I really do. I think you're going to see both quarterbacks throw the ball a lot. And when you have Aaron Jones, it's a much softer blow to miss A.J. Dillon if, in fact, he can't play. You'd rather have him than not. But I'll tell you what, given the choice, I'd rather miss him in Miami when it's 60 or 70 degrees. And it's more of a throwing game, I think, than last week when you really wanted him. I mean, you guys saw what he did, in that cold weather. It wasn't even the stats or the numbers. I just think he inflicted pain, and I think he emotionally and mentally beat down that defense that didn't want to be there in the first place, So I don't think he's as crucial this week as he was last week.
Intrepid reporter of the program here, Kyle Morningwood, John, just announced that A.J. Dillon has cleared the protocol and is good to go. So we'll see if that does hold up. Morningwood has, he has broken some news here on the program recently, so I have no reason to doubt him. Now, let's talk about a couple of the other games, John, that are going to be important for the Green Bay Packers prospects to make it into the postseason, because it's not just the Packers winning out, right? Other scenarios need to also transpire in order for Green Bay to win, including the Detroit Lions losing some games here. Detroit at 7-7 on the road versus the Carolina Panthers. Now, John, Detroit just 2.5-point favorites. They were 3-point favorites last evening, and that is where I took Carolina plus 3 points. Glad that I did. What do you think about the Lions? Second straight road game here. Dan Campbell's got this team playing real well. What do you think about their game versus Carolina? How do you see this shaking out?
Hottest team in the NFL right now. They really are. Jared Goff is playing well. We always forget about him. I think he's one of those guys we always pass him off as a failed quarterback because he was the top pick in the draft. I mean, he went to a Super Bowl, and he's limited, but I think he's a top 15 quarterback in the league, and he's playing like a top 7 or 8 quarterback right now. He's a guy that plays within his limits too. That's one thing about Jared Goff. You don't see him force things, and people make fun of Dan Campbell, but at least you know what you have in Dan Campbell as a player. And we do this all the time, I think. I talk about this on the show. We have our way of thinking as media people and fans, but we forget in locker rooms, those guys respect different things than we do. They're not looking at analytics. They're not looking at things that we look at. They're not looking at betting lines, like the three of us do all the time, and a lot of our viewers and listeners. those players, it's more about raw emotion. It's more about adrenaline. And I think, I know this is such a cliche, but I think every guy and all 53 guys in that Lions locker room, they look at Dan Campbell and they're like, yeah, we'd run through a wall for him. We'll do anything for this guy. That matters. It doesn't matter to us because we can't analyze it. It's harder to break it down. I always say, like, we want 2 + 2 to equal 4 because we're media people. We're about logic and we want to explain things. But in that locker room, I think Dan Campbell's worked. He might not be the smartest coach in the NFL, but that adrenaline he brings and that personality, and he never deviates from it. And most players will tell you, we don't care what the coach is like as long as the guy's consistent and we trust it. And I think it's worked in a lot of ways. The quarterback's playing well. You knew the run game was going to be a big part of what they do, but it's like 3 running backs. You got 2 that play a lot, but they don't. It seems like a team that doesn't care who gets the credit. And it's hard to do that in pro sports. And defensively, they were atrocious for 2 months. They're giving up 19, 20 points a game now, last 4 or 5 weeks. So I like Detroit. I think the Lions win this game. I really do. I think Carolina is in play out the string mode. I know technically they got a shot to win that bad division. So I guess I wouldn't say play out the string, but I think Detroit's going to win this game. I don't know if it matters that much to the Packers. It could if we're having that conversation. But ultimately, I think, not to go off track too much, but you touched on it before, really the best path for the Packers would be to have Seattle lose 1 and then have the Giants lose 2 out of 3. And then you got to win out. I think realistically that's the best way to get in right now. I think, I don't know if you guys might know this more than me, but I think the only way the Lions would factor into the Packers would be if the Giants lost all 3 and the Packers were trying to beat them out, which at this point I don't think is likely. And then a tiebreaker could ensue between the Packers and Lions, and then the Lions, what they're doing now would matter.
It's a lot of complicated math.
There are. Yeah, I try not to do too much math on my show. So, but again, your point about the game, I think Detroit's going to win this game. Not just because they're hot. I think this is a pretty good team. I really do, and they're just finding themselves now.
I agree with you, John. They have something. We've been talking about it. You can't put your finger on it. There's like this aura around them, not to get too new agey. There's like some kind of magic that's going on there. And again, I think they are the hottest team in the NFL. And Carolina's coming off a loss. They technically could win and get into the playoffs. I think Detroit wins this game too.
Which is exactly why I feel like the play here is Carolina +3, because Detroit is doing exactly what a lot of people in Dallas did last week, and they're looking right past the Jags. And Chad, that was one of our hot plays last week here on the program. We said take Jacksonville plus the 4 points. I thought that the Cowboys were way overlooking Jacksonville and trying to focus on their matchup versus Philadelphia. But the thing is this, guys, if the Packers win out, they still only have a 69% chance now of making the postseason. So Detroit factors in some. The other team that does factor in quite heavily is the Washington Commanders. And I'll ask you about this one as our final take here this morning with you, John. What are your thoughts about the 49ers versus the Commanders? The 49ers against the spread, 5-0 in their last 5 after allowing less than 90 yards rushing in previous games. There's all sorts of analytical reasons to point to the 49ers winning this game. Taylor Heineke looks like he is now on thinner ice with Ron Rivera, who said the team will take it week by week and see how it goes with him as starting quarterback or Carson Wentz. That's not something that, if you're Taylor Heineke, that you want to hear. The thing with Brock Purdy is this: we know that he's been good in the last few games. If that does change, when does that change? Do the Washington Commanders continue to play spoiler? Currently, San Francisco's favored by 7. I could see San Francisco completely blowing these guys out and scoring 21 points, holding the Commanders to none. What about you? How do you see this game breaking down?
Everything points to San Francisco winning here. And this is one, you brought up some great numbers. And sometimes you look at numbers and they can lie to you a little bit. Not here. I think every number you threw out is going to come to fruition in this game. The 49er defense right now is playing like the best defense in the NFL. And like I said about a couple other things, sometimes we take cumulative numbers in an NFL season. Okay, these guys are first, these guys are second. But take the last 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, the 49ers are flying around the ball like no team in the NFL. This looks like a high octane defense right now that's coached well, but also they've got athletes. It's like there's 3 helmets on the ball every play. whether they run it or pass it. The pass rush is good. And the McCaffrey trade turned out to be big because they have a true weapon back there that I think is helping out a rookie quarterback who's playing really well. There's a case to be made that right now, guys, the 49ers are the best team in the NFC, even ahead of the Eagles.
Absolutely.
They're playing great. And you got another team that doesn't even know who their quarterback is right now. And I think Washington had a nice run to get themselves in this position. I'm not sure they're as good as their record is. So I think in reality, this is a 49er win, which is another stuff for the Packers. You kind of need the 49ers to win this. And I'll give you another weird roundabout kind of thought here going into the next couple of weeks. I think from a Packer perspective, you actually want the Giants to win. And here's why. If the Giants keep winning, then the Giants' final game against Dallas will have meaning, because if the Giants are pushing Dallas a little bit for that 4 seed, then Dallas has to play hard that last game, which could, in essence, help the Packers out if Dallas has to play that last game because they're playing Washington. I'm looking 3 or 4 steps ahead here, but you kind of want the Giants to make a move on Dallas, if that makes sense, because then Dallas has to play hard week 17 against Washington, the team the Packers are trying to face. So, I'm looking ahead a little bit on that one. But as far as right now this week, you got to root for the Niners to win. I think they will. And you hope Seattle can lose in one more game, which I think they will.
Yeah, they're playing Kansas City. I think that's a loss. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and I was just going to say that it feels like we've got to do more mental gymnastics than Mary Lou Retton here to get this.
I'm getting out of hand here, guys. Sorry. I do this on the show, and I got to tone it down a little bit.
No, it's perfect.
This is what Packer fans are going through, and believe me, we are playing triage to these kinds of emotions every single week here as the Packers win or don't win. It becomes tried and true portion of the program, as you know well. ESPN 105.5's The Sports Lead, John Papadopoulos. Great to have you on the program this morning. Really excited to introduce you to the rest of the guys and gals that are tuning in here with us on multiple platforms. John, excited to be back with you next Thursday on The Sports Lead. My friend, Merry Christmas. Have a happy Christmas to you and your family. Stay safe and warm.
You guys do the same. Yeah, stay safe. Thanks so much. And yeah, have a great Christmas. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, John.
So much.
Have a good one.
Back.
See you.
Take care.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
This is Tailgating Tales with Bert Kowalski, episode 22. There'll be no toilet wine before it's time. It was late September of 92. The Bengals are in town and managed to take out Packers starting QB, the Magic Man, Dan Majkowski. Enter stage left, and then fresh-faced Brett Favre. Who engineers a beautiful fourth-quarter comeback to beat Cincy 24-23. It began a 15-year bromance with the state of Wisconsin and cheeseheads worldwide. Meanwhile, I'm in the Lambeau Field parking lot, where I've enjoyed every home game since I was knee-high to a Milwaukee's best tall boy. This is where the tale takes a twist. Majkowski's out, the pack is in jeopardy, and I'm out of beer. Lucky for me, Lou Three Fingers Nelson, who did a stretch in Joliet, always had a fresh batch of toilet wine brewing in his mini Winnie. I was 6 cups in and barely coherent when Favre threw that TD to Kendrick Taylor for the win. God bless Favre, and God bless Three Fingers Toilet Wine.
And Favre put it right on a line. A perfect pass, a perfect catch by Kendrick Taylor.
Back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. George Carlin once said, "Those who dance are considered insane by those who cannot hear the music." Isn't that true? Here's your host, Dave Kearney.
My favorite satirical comedian of all time is George Carlin. My second favorite is Dave Chappelle, and Dave's actually making a run for George Carlin right now. Have you watched much of Dave Chappelle's stuff recently?
You mean a stand-up?
Yeah, anything that he's done.
Absolutely.
Don't you feel that the career arc for Dave Chappelle is turning a lot more George Carlin-esque than it is like, Eddie Murphy or Richard Pryor? I mean, rest in peace. But, he hasn't gone the route of slapstick movies. He is a social commentator now. And I think that's exactly what George Carlin was. His writing and his books, the last book that I think George Carlin wrote, When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops, was one of the fucking funniest books I have ever read in my entire life.
I think I read Brain Droppings and
It's great too.
That I can't remember the whole title. That was a great book and just interesting to hear his background and how he grew up and his relationship with his brother, and then he went into the Air Force and he actually started on the radio in the Air Force and learning all of those things. But I agree with you when it comes to, if you do look at their arc of how they kind of started off silly in a lot of ways. Obviously in the time it wasn't, but looking back it is, and then kind of diving into real stuff and talking about the craziness of this world and willing to poke the bear and not necessarily pick sides. They'll poke the bear. It doesn't matter what side it is. I agree with you. Some of the stuff that David Chappelle has done recently on Saturday Night Live, especially his monologues, unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. It's quite groundbreaking because everybody has gotten so timid, so scared, so afraid, so petrified to actually speak up and say what they think. And that is that's refreshing when you see a guy like Dave. So I'm glad you brought up George Carlin. If you're one of the younger audience members, go onto YouTube and just search George Carlin. Anything George Carlin, you will be entertained. I guarantee you. I think that Morning Wood is, I don't know, where did you find Pork Chop? Like that would be the good one because Pork Chop, Chad, is, oh my God. He is known to us here in the Cooley region as one of the few people that when you see them driving, you ask yourself why the DMV gave them a license. The other thing is
a guy named Pork Chop. Are you saying
he's an actual guy named Pork Chop?
Okay.
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with this guy, Chad, but something. And he also used to want to be, he also used to want to be on the radio so much. And I would tell him, Pork Chop, we're never, ever going to have you on the Pork Chop. His string of non sequiturs that would be coming through a text line were such that I actually had some themed up, like English drawing room drama music, so that I could read, and now messages from Pork Chop, because you couldn't understand what the fuck this guy was saying. And he drives for a company, I don't want to blast this company, that actually transports people who can't drive for themselves. Like, this just feels dangerous. This is when licenses are just ways for the government to take your money because they don't give a fuck if you're actually able to do the thing. Like, they don't ask you when you're going to get your fishing license, can you catch a fish? They just want your $15, right? Like, that's all they want. They want the $15. You're going to get your driver's license, and this guy, Pork Chop, you should instantaneously look at him. One look at him and you're like, no, you're not getting a license. You're never going to drive, especially not a Class B or a Class A vehicle. That's just, it feels dangerous.
Yeah, they're not as much of a stickler on that kind of stuff as you would hope they would be. And you're right. It's just a tax. Matty Ice checking in this day in sports history. 1894. Holy shit.
Yes.
The United States Golf Association is formed. 1996. Cordell Stewart sets a record for the longest TD run by a QB 80 yards. Remember Cordell Stewart? Remember how he hated being slash, but he was so good at it? And now that's kind of how he would fit in even better in today's NFL?
Yep. He would be starting for the Baltimore Ravens right now, guaranteed. If Tyler Huntley couldn't go, it would have Cordell Stewart. Here's another interesting little factoid here. It wasn't until 1996 that Cordell Stewart could get onto many of the golf courses that were started back in 1894 by the United States Golf Association. Little known fact.
I think he shared time with Neil. Wasn't it Neil O'Donnell? Am I getting that name right?
Oh, God, you're right.
Oh my God, I remember that. I remember I was actually rooting for the Steelers because my buddy was a Cowboys fan in that Super Bowl, and of course they got their ass handed to them.
Bad.
Yeah, that was bad. Not good. Yeah.
Jason P1 Breacher's like, he's back and there's hot pork chop talk. LOL. It's funny. So I was actually out to brunch with Breacher last weekend. We were chopping it up at this place called the Blue Moon, which sits right on Lake Onalaska. Gorgeous spot. And he was lamenting the fact that we didn't have more pork chop talk on the program. And it's because of one obvious reason. Pork chop does not know how to find us. Like, we're all over the place. We're on every web platform you could ever be. Pork chop does not know how to find us. Like, he accidentally stumbled on a radio station one time, and that's why we call it the P1 Fan Club. And as he was fumbling around using his big fucking mitts to like smash things inside the vehicle, he ended up putting the station on, and it just stayed on.
I'm starting to feel empathy for pork chop right now. So I don't
And
know
he's
this
the
guy,
heel.
but you're
He's the-
just totally clowning this guy.
Dude, he's like Gollum. He's like the heel. He's everybody's least favorite dude. And even the people that would consider him an acquaintance, not fans of his. Like, I know his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law does not like him. Like,
I
at
have
all.
a feeling a guy named Pork Chop probably smells. Is that true?
Oh, fuck. He's exactly what you would expect.
Okay.
Like one of oh man.
This isn't the same guy you did the radio show with. That's a different guy, right?
That's a different guy, but a
Oh,
lot of
that's
people
a
have
different Pork Chop.
Yeah,
That was Meatball, right? Was that?
there's been some crossover confusion a couple of times. Listen, we can't say that there hasn't been some crossover, some confusion.
Oh, here it is.
Matty Ice is checking back in. Don't feel bad for him, Chad. He's a tool.
Oh,
I
here
mean,
we
he
go.
really is.
Morning, what rumor has it? Pork Chop is straight to your brothers.
We're not even. It's like a name that's not supposed to be mentioned. You say that shit three times in the mirror and it pops
Yes.
up. You know.
I'll take it down. I'll take it down. Okay.
All right. Let's go to a poll
Like
question.
Beetlejuice. Yeah.
It is. It's like Beetlejuice or Bloody Mary, you know, or fucking like Candyman or something, right? You're like, no, don't say
Poor
it three
Pork Chop.
times.
Come on, Pork Chop.
Poor Pork Chop. The Pork Chop can't understand most of the English language, so I don't think that much of this lands on him. But if you see Pork Chop out there, what you have to do, you know, it's duck and roll, right? Like, or what is that thing? Tuck, cover, and roll. When you get caught on fire, right? Tuck, cover, and roll.
Sure.
That's what you do when you see Pork Chop. If you see him driving, just stop your car. Stop your car, put it in a safe place, not in neutral, in park, pull off, flashing lights, let him get out of the way, and then you can resume travel.
Foreman says he was at the UWL basketball game the other day, and that's why they lost.
Well, that's why they ran out of popcorn. I mean, I know that for sure. Fucking guy ate all the popcorn before the end of the first quarter.
He's the GOAT, not the greatest of all time, but it used to be the GOAT was the negative thing, right?
Yes.
You brought the GOAT into this. That was the whole Cubs deal. He's that guy. He's the cooler.
And also, like the GOAT, he ate fucking part of the furniture. Like that was the other thing. So there was a couch that was just sitting there minding its own business, nobody bothering the couch. And there's Pork Chop just taking off a corner square.
Now, Matty Ice is asking you, do you want to bet you $1,000 on something?
He did.
True?
He wanted to bet me. He's a fucking Lions fan, Chad. And so he used to text into my program and say that he would bet me all sorts of crazy money that the Lions were going to beat teams that were playing in the NFL. And that was before this season.
Okay.
And I was like, Pork Chop, dude, come on. And he wanted to bet me some crazy amount. Now, that's where I draw the line because I can't take money from somebody like that, right? Like when I go to the old folks' home and I play three card money, yeah, I'm doing it at the memory ward, sure. But I mean, I always have a cache of prizes for second and third place, which everybody is, right? Nobody wins first place, but second and third place for sure. I wouldn't bet Pork Chop. That just felt wrong.
No, that's not right. Yeah, it's candy from a baby kind of scenario. Yeah,
a little bit.
Do that. Yeah,
a little bit. Little fuckers hold on to that candy pretty tight, though. Got to watch them.
You do.
They got sharper teeth than you think, too. Also, by the way, I've been bitten by many a baby. Sharper teeth than you might think. They're, I wouldn't say chupacabra-like, but I mean kind of close. Hey, speaking of bets, Chad, we've got a big slate of bets to look at here for Week 16 in the NFL, which kicks off tonight. And for those that have just joined the program, welcome. We're having a lot of fun here. John Papadapolus was on the show today from ESPN 105.5's The Sports Lead. The Recovery Room, we've got that big next Thursday. That is 1 week from yesterday, giving away a 43-inch TV and a big snowboard, a whole bunch of prizes from Stack's Family Farms and our friends at Lacrosse Beverage. Go to the Recovery Room anytime between now and then and order a beer. Get yourself into the running on Thursday. We'll double up on those entries. And also, if you need some work, and we'll hit this right before we go, Joe's Helping Hands Landscaping is looking for you. Chad, I wanted to just take a snapshot of Week 16 NFL games here. Get your 2 cents on just kind of these games. I just want to run them down. Jacksonville +2 versus the Jets. I like the Jets, Jacksonville tonight. I think the game goes under, though.
Agreed.
Joey Miller was talking about this. It's going to be horrible weather. I like Jacksonville. Where are you at?
I like Jacksonville, and I like the under as well. Yeah,
Jacksonville,
especially with the weather. Yeah, I think unders this week are going to be pretty big.
Me too. Jacksonville, by the way, don't look now. They could still win the AFC South because reports came out this morning. Ryan Tannehill likely done for the season.
Yep.
That ankle hip of his is going to keep him out for the season. Saturday, we've got the big boat of games. All right. For Christmas Day, we've got 3 games, which is the subject of our poll question. The Bucs are winning big time on Twitter. The Packers are winning big time on Facebook about which Wisconsin team you're most excited to see. Buffalo, Chicago. I like Buffalo here. I don't necessarily like a -8, even though I do think they cover this spread. I think this game, again, goes under 40. I think this will be a 24-13 game, maybe It could be even less than that. This could be 18-9.
Yeah, I think it's closer than that. I think it's a 3-point game. I like Buffalo to win.
Okay, Buffalo to win. So we like Buffalo to win. We like this game to go under. Cleveland versus New Orleans. Cleveland, a 2.5-point favorite at home versus the Saints. I like the Saints in this one. I agree this game goes under. I think the Saints and the Browns play a really ugly game. I like the Saints to win this one. I do not trust Deshaun Watson at all right now.
I'm going to go contrarian. I'm going to take Cleveland on this.
Hey, they beat Baltimore last week, which is a game that I think has got a wild spread. We'll talk about that in a second. Titans and Houston, here's another interesting spot. So Houston has been knocking at the door. They nearly beat Dallas. They nearly beat the Chiefs, right? I think they win. They're dogs in this one. I think they beat the Titans. It looks like that kid's going to have to play whoever it is behind Tannehill, Malik Willis for Tennessee. Tennessee's been really struggling. And like I've said, Houston's been knocking on the door. I'll take the Texans plus the points. I think the game goes probably over 35.5 though.
Yeah, I'll take I like Houston in this as well. I guess that would be the upset, right?
Yeah.
And I would take the over on that. Yes.
It will, though. I just checked this weather thing. It could be as low as -17 with wind chill in Nashville.
I'm going to like the under on that.
I think the under might be a good play. I just saw that pop up right now. Kansas City laying 10 versus Seattle. I think they beat Seattle. I don't think they win by 10. I think Seattle keeps this close. I think Seattle could possibly upset them.
I agree.
Kansas City's been playing closer than they should for a lot of weeks recently here. The total 49, I totally see this going over that. What are your thoughts? Kansas City -10. I like Seattle plus the points here.
Yeah, I think Seattle plus the points is probably the play. Kansas City's kind of got their spot, right? I mean, they don't have a whole lot to play for.
Yep.
Seattle, on the other hand, does. So I'm always looking at those scenarios as well. It's like, where are these teams at and who's got to play for what? But I think Kansas City ultimately wins this game. But I don't necessarily agree with the 10. So I would say, yeah, Seattle and the points.
Yeah, this might be a play that we could look at teasing as well, the Seattle game, because when you see numbers this big, and we'll tie this maybe in with a Baltimore game, that, you could go Seattle plus the points. I'd feel pretty confident. I agree, though. I think Kansas City wins. Minnesota -4 versus the Giants. This is another game, total 48, that I don't know about, man. Minnesota plays everybody really close, and they seem to win, but they win really close. I'd take a stab on the Giants plus the 4 here. I think this could be a field goal game. The over-under, I think I'd actually go under 48 in this one. I could see Minnesota not putting up as many as you think they can or should, and the Giants are not an offensive juggernaut. They're just not.
No, but they obviously need the game. They need to win more than the Vikings do.
For sure. But the Vikings are playing for position now. You got to remember.
They are playing for, not that they don't want to win. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying the Giants absolutely need to win, where Minnesota doesn't absolutely have to win.
Well, that is fair. Cincinnati -3 versus New England feels like a gift. Only 3 points for Cincinnati. That's on the road, so Bill Belichick's getting dogged here. I think that we're starting to expose Bill Belichick's hubris a bit here as the seasons have worn on. You got Matt Patricia, a defensive coordinator who wasn't even that good as a head coach, calling plays. That's a laughable scenario. I think Cincinnati -3 is a very good play. Again, the total 41.5 at New England. That could be dicey considering what we have. What are your thoughts, Cincinnati -3?
Yeah, I like Cincinnati. I take give up the points. I agree with you on that. I think the Bengals get the win.
Baltimore -7 versus Atlanta, total 36 here. I've got Atlanta plus the points. Baltimore not -7, not without Lamar Jackson. I know that they've got Tyler Huntley. He's okay. But Atlanta's going to also be playing with Desmond Ridder, so they're going to see what that QB is going to do. I think that Atlanta plus the points and the under is a play here. And that Baltimore number -7, or if you take it on the other side, Atlanta +7, I would use a 2-team 6-point teaser here to take Seattle plus 16 and also take Atlanta plus 13. Okay, that's what I would do here, because then you can use those 2 6-point teasers and plus them up. I don't think Seattle's going to lose by 16, and I don't think Atlanta's going to lose by 13. I also think that this play under is a solid one here. 36 doesn't look like a lot, but there's another one. San Francisco has swelled. Now they're -10 in spots versus Washington, total of 38. I don't know about 10. I could see 7, but at the same time, Bosa is a wrecker on defense right now. This guy is the best defensive player in the league. And John Papadopoulos is right. They're running all over the field. McCaffrey's running. No Deebo Samuel, but Purdy's been good enough.
Yeah, I think I agree with John. I like San Francisco to crush Washington, actually. So I don't know if I would make a bet on it, but I think San Francisco wins pretty handily.
All right, Dallas -5 versus Philly. I think that Gardner Minshew could actually make a play here and come up big for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know Dallas fans, Don't think that'll be a possibility. I've not liked what I've seen from Dak and company last few weeks. I'll take Philly plus the points. Vegas, I'll take them plus the points versus Pittsburgh. And then Sunday, Chad, I'm going to go over the total on Green Bay. I'm not going to give a fuck about Denver and the Rams. And Tampa Bay minus 7.5 versus Arizona. Dude, they've got Trace McSorley, I think, is going to play for the Arizona Cardinals, not even Colt McCoy. I'll take Tampa Tom in that one.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. I'd take Tampa Bay in that game as well.
Guys and gals, Merry Christmas. We're off tomorrow for an extended holiday break. Hope you have a very happy and Merry Christmas. We'll be back bright and early Monday morning, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. If you need work, Joe's Helping Hands Landscaping could be looking for you for some snow removal. Chad, Merry Christmas, buddy. Love you.
Merry Christmas to you as well, and to everybody out there. Thank you so much, and happy holidays. And stay safe. It's going to be cold.
Yeah, it's going to be cold. See you guys on Monday.